If you go back to the founding philosophers that were the basis, in a sense, of the European Enlightenment, and in particular of the theory of modern liberal democracy, Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Montesquieu, up through the American founding fathers, there is a lack of discussion of one particular issue that has become extremely important in modern democracies, and that concerns group rights. When those philosophers talked about freedom or limited government or a democratic society and democratic participation, they were largely dealing with individuals whom they believed had certain liberties in the state of nature, and the purpose of a liberal society was to be able to protect that sphere of individual liberty against the state. And they did not think about the claims of subsidiary groups that were the source of identity that could make rules governing individuals. They did not interpret freedom in that sense. The Federalist Papers were, of course, a utterly serious discussion of the American Constitution written in the 1780s. In the second Federalist paper, John Jay, one of the American founders, has the following sentence. He says, "Providence has been pleased to give this one connected country to one united people, a people descended from the same ancestors, speaking the same language, possessing the same religion, and attached to the same principle." In other words, all of the colonists in America at that time, except for the black slaves, were white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, all descended from one part of England or another. And I think that it was an accident of history that in France and Britain and the United States, the areas where modern liberal theory was formulated, these were all relatively ethnically and religiously homogeneous societies at the moment that they became democracies. If the theory of modern democracy had been formulated in Holland or in Germany, I think we would have ended up with a different theory. But as it was, most early liberals came from societies that were relatively ethnically homogeneous, and therefore the question of whether liberty involves the liberty of individuals or rather the liberty of groups, of cultural groups, to make rules for people that lived within those groups was really one that was not addressed in that philosophical tradition. That is what I call the hole in modern liberal theory, and through that hole has stepped modern identity politics. And that is really the issue that confronts all of us. The Canadian philosopher Charles Taylor has written, I think, quite helpfully about what he calls the sources of the self, why the question of identity is such an important one for modern people.